Hello me lovers, and today we're going to talk about repotting because it's not necessarily all about giving your plant a bigger pot, and if you do it wrong this can cause more harm than good. So let me show you how to repot, when to do it, and all of the in between in today's video. I just want to do a quick little mention because there are some ways that you can support me other than just liking and subscribing this video. I do have a little Patreon running and I'm open to ideas in what you would like to have exclusively shown to you over there, or you can go and buy me a coffee, but in my case it will be a cup of tea. Thank you very much, and let's crack on with today's video. So let's first talk about when do you need to repot your plants. There could be a few reasons why you need to repot your plant. Maybe your plant is just growing out of its tiny little pot and it needs an upgrade. Your plant could be showing signs of root bound and definitely needs some more space to grow. Or it could be because of pest reasons, which we will touch on a little bit later in this video. An important note to make whilst we're here in when to repot is if you buy a brand new plant from the nursery, houseplant shop or wherever, it's probably not a good idea to repot your plant then. A lot of these houseplants come from the Netherlands and that means they get imported into the UK. This trip causes a lot of stress on plants. So as soon as you buy your plant, it could have had that journey already and it's having another journey into your home when you bring it there, and it's going to get used to all of the temperatures and climates in your home. Because of this, repotting your plant straight away when you get it is probably not the best idea, as this can cause a lot more harm than good for your little plant baby. You can be in the video when you're writing away. So I'm gonna... In my case, a lot of my plants need to be repotted because I leave this job to last minute. It's a very messy one and it's not my favorite either. So repotting is something I push until the very last minute. You'll see some of my plants are showing signs of root boundedness. As your plants grow, the new leaves tend to get bigger and bigger, but when your plant is root bounded, the leaves tend to get smaller and smaller. I can see this in this plant. This leaf doesn't look like it's going to be as big as this one. Another telltale sign and a reason why I have clear pots is because I can see a root going all the way around, roots even, multiple roots going all the way around this plant, and almost some peeking out the bottom. And alocasia also produces corms, so this is also taking a lot of space up in this pot too. So this plant is desperate for a repot. Talking of plants that are desperate for a repot is the blue star fern. Now I have had this fern for a very, very long time. I think the last time I repotted this fern was probably about four, maybe even 5 years ago, which is not ideal. I know this plant is root bounded because I can see this plant has physically morphed this plastic pot and it is actually pushing and changing this pot's dynamic. I can see roots just pushing right up against this pot. It feels super, super tight. As soon as I get this fern out of this pot, I think we're all gonna see the terror that is inside this pot. Now I've told you when to repot your plant, the next question is going to be, what pot size do you use when repotting your plant? In an ideal world, you want to jump up a maximum of 4 centimeters. For example, I have these two pots here. This is a 12 centimeter pot and this is a 14 centimeter pot. This is each pot in, so you can see the difference in gap there. And it might look minuscule, but the impact of this is actually really huge for your plants. Now there is a myth out there that you shouldn't be jumping from a really small pot like this into a really large pot like this one. So this is a 12 centimeter pot and this one is a 17 centimeter pot. I'm gonna say this doesn't matter because it really doesn't matter. The only thing to note when you are repotting into a bigger pot is that you are at more risk of overwatering your plant. But if you've got that down and you know you're watering, you know your plant, going into a bigger pot is absolutely fine. And you will be able to do that because you're watching my videos and I'm giving you the best advice ever. Just saying. So choosing the right pot is important, but what is probably more important is the right soil. I say this with the most kindness I have in my heart to you guys out there watching this now. Please do not use soil that you have just dug from your garden to repot your plant. This is because your soil out in your garden is really unpredictable. It could have a really high pH scale, the nutrients could be so crazy, it could have been in contact with pesticides, it could have some pests in the soil, diseases. The soil is probably going to be really compact, so the drainage is going to be off. And it could contain some seeds in there of wildflowers or weeds, which could then just be in your home. So please choose a specialist sterilized houseplant compost, whether this is one you have made yourself with components or you have got pre-made brought specialist compost. I like to use Soil Ninja's soils. They have a good range of pre-made mixes or components to make your own mix. For the sake of this video, I have gotten pre-made mixes for the specific plants I am going to repot in this video. So once you have your perfect soil ready to go, it is time to get your hands dirty and actually repot your plant. So first of all, we are going to repot my variegated Anthurium ballonium. I'm repotting this plant because, as you can see, it is in a very tiny pot and it is starting to really outgrow its pot really quickly. So repotting it in a new one is going to give its roots that burst of space and hopefully spike a really good growth. I'm going to show you how to take your plant out of its pot safely. This is a gardening trick that I have learned over the years, and it is a good way to take your plant out without causing it too much stress. When you pick up your plant, you want to separate your fingers out a little bit and placing the plant in between your fingers like so. This holds the stem of the plant so it's not going to wobble around too much. You are then going to turn this upside down, squeeze the pot so the roots come away from the pot and the soil is loosened. Once you've done this, you'll be able to take the pot away with ease and exposing the plant's roots inside. So you have just learnt my gardener's old trick of removing a plant from a pot in the most safest way you can. It's time to actually repot our little plant. To demonstrate that jumping from a tiny pot to a big pot is okay, I'm going to plant this Anthurium from a 6 centimeter pot to a 13 centimeter pot. So it's over double its size. But this is okay because I know how to look after Anthuriums, I know its watering schedule, and I know it's going to do fine. Once your plant is out the pot, I like to get rid of some of the old soil and gently nudge these roots a little bit out. If you break some of the roots, don't worry about it too much. Sometimes breaking some roots, especially if they're seriously overgrown, can stimulate your plant to make new growth instead. Once I have teased off as much as I desire with the old compost and teased some of its roots out and apart, I am ready to get my compost. This is the Anthurium and Orchid compost from Soil Ninja. Getting serious, I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm going to start by placing some compost into my pot, and I want enough where the base of your plant is sitting at the top of the pot. I've placed a little bit at the bottom and it is sitting quite comfortably in line with the pot top. So I am just going to hold my plant and pour in more compost around, making sure the plant is in the center of the pot. And I am just going to gently push down with my fingers around the plant, like so. Pushing the soil down around your plant means your plant is going to be secure and it isn't going to wobble around. So if I can do this and my plant isn't toppling over, falling out my pot, I know I have done a really good job in making sure my plant is stable in its new pot. And it is as easy as that when it comes to repotting. Very straightforward, very simple, an important job to do. Now, sometimes repotting your plant isn't just a routine standard repotting, it can be an emergency. If you remember earlier in this video, I mentioned you might be repotting because of pest reasons or because of overwatering. There are a few different steps you should do when repotting your plant. If you're repotting your plant for pest reasons, you want to clear as much of the old soil on the plant as possible, even if this means washing it down. and just rinsing away all of that old soil. So when you put it in its new soil, it's completely fresh, it's sterile, and it's pest free. If you're repotting your plant because of overwatering, again, you want to try and remove as much of that old soil, as possible. This is because that old soil is soggy, it's really saturated with water. This could cause root rot for your plant. So clearing all of that old soil away that is soggy and overwatered will mean your new soil is dry, fresh, and it's going to let your plant breathe and dry out. So I've repotted this one. Let's take a look at my other ones. So let's look at my alocasia. You can see it is really root bounded in there. I'm just going to pinch and pull this plant out. I don't need to remove all of the old soil, but I'm going to remove some of it. I'm also going to take out any of these corms that I can see. There's a whole new plant there. This soil is just falling off anyway because it's really loose. So now I have my new plants. I'm going to pop that in a new pot. I've got 3 corms there that I can grow into brand new Alocasia black velvets. As I am planting multiple plants together, I'm going to use a slightly bigger pot too. Getting my specialist soil, pouring in enough so these plants sit very happily at the top. And as I'm pouring in the new compost, I am pushing it down with my fingers, making sure this plant is very stable in this new pot. I do like to tap the sides because it just makes me feel better, but also because I am pushing down the compost is becoming slightly compacted. By tapping the sides, it just loosens it up that little bit again. It is just easy as that. This plant is now repotted and ready to go back on my shelf. Now the last plant you have all been waiting to see to repot is my fern, and this could be a little bit trickier to get out of the pot. I am squeezing as hard as I can to make sure it is loose. Now I will note with ferns, they don't necessarily like their roots being touched that much. Make sure you are really gentle when you are repotting ferns and try to keep messing with the roots down to a minimum. This guy is seriously pot bounded. Whoa. And there we go. So this is a blue star fern. It grows its leaves out of these rhizomes. So these rhizomes should be more on the surface of the pot rather than in the pot like that. You can see the fine mesh roots all over this plant, and it's kept its shape of the pot, which is how you know this plant has been root bounded for a long time. I'm just going to very gently try and loosen these rhizomes a little bit. I'm not going to mess with it too much more. I'm going to put him in a really nice new big pot. So in my experience, ferns tend to like pots that are longer. I'm going to get the new soil, place him in here, maybe a little bit higher. Like so. I think that's perfect. The new soil down the sides. I'm hoping I have enough, which I might not, which is fine. So I did run out of soil, but I do have a terraria mix from Soil Ninja, which will be just as fine for a fern. You can see why this is my least favorite job with all of this mess that repotting creates. I need to seriously get myself a repotting mat. But anyway, there we go. Fern is now finally repotted after probably 5 years, and he is probably screaming, thank God. Whether it's a normal repot or an emergency one, the next step is crucial: watering it the right way. If you are doing a normal repot with your houseplants, I would suggest to make sure to water your plant thoroughly after you have repotted. Watering your plant after it has been repotted will drag the roots down through the soil and just make sure your plant is super structural and happy in its new pot. If you are repotting because of an emergency, and especially if it has been overwatered, I would strongly suggest to leave your plant in its new soil for at least 1 to 2 weeks and then give it a thorough water. Your plant may look a bit droopy and sad because of this, but you're risking root rot with your plant. So just allowing your plant to really dry out and its roots to really dry out will stop root rot in its tracks and get you back on track. Your plant could still have a little flop or a little bit of shock after it has been repotted. This can be completely normal. Now, if you are doing an emergency repot, your plant was being overwatered and it had root rot, you want to keep an eye on your plant, because if your plant starts showing more signs of decline, then it could be that your plant has come sadly to end of life. So that's everything you need to know about repotting and how to do it, when to do it, and everything in between, and you are now a repotting pro. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time, me lovers. Bye!